Tobias is traveling with his daughter Nora to the Romsdalen Mountains in Norway to view the Troll Peaks. The fairy tale says 13 trolls once gathered here for a wedding, but they got so drunk they lost track of time and became mountains. Tobias is hurt to hear that Nora believes she is too old for fairy tales at this point, and he tells her that you have to believe in something in order to be able to see it. 20 years later, Nora is an archaeologist leading her team on a digging expedition along northwestern Norway's Atlantic coast. The majority of them are prepared to give up as they have had no luck in 6 months and money are low, but Nora has a strong will and keeps going. She finds a dinosaur skull as a result of her perseverance, which the crew celebrates. A construction crew is now constructing a new railway by tunneling through the Dovre mountains. Activists opposed to such environmental degradation have drawn a lot of attention to this, yet their presence is disregarded. When the tunnel is finally opened by detonating the explosives, something in the mountains below growls and sends a collapse into which not all of the workmen can escape in time. The Norwegians are the first to notice this catastrophe and the seismic activity it created. Military forces, who sent a reconnaissance plane to look into the matter. Sigrid, who is in charge of overseeing the cameras on those aircraft, immediately compiles a number of images to show her superiors, who determine that this is significant enough to tell Prime Minister Berit. On her journey to the base, Berit is informed of the extensive devastation wrought by unidentified forces and shown the photographs they captured, which, in Andreas' opinion, resemble footprints. Andreas is tasked with keeping the press away from this knowledge and locating some scientific specialists who could assist them with this difficulty because Berit considers it humorous but impractical. In the midst of her celebration, Nora is picked up by a helicopter a short while later and asked to accompany the pilot to discuss a problem of national security. Andreas greets Nora at the base and leads her to a private meeting where Berit, the top military officials, and a few other experts are debating the potential causes of the mountain disaster. Since dinosaurs are gone and therefore couldn't have caused this, Nora's claims that she is a paleontologist aren't taken seriously. The potential of a military assault from another country is not entirely discounted by the team, though. However, the reports to date seem to support the idea that the reason is geological in nature. Pictures of a crater and other terrain features flash on the screen, leading the experts to propose explanations like sinkholes or underground pockets of gas. Nora interrupts them to remind out that those craters are unmistakably footprints, but she is dismissed once more because footprints would logically imply the existence of monsters, which is absurd. Sigrid again interrupts the conversation after breaking into one of the activists' phones and discovering live video of the incident. Although watching the wreckage is incredibly upsetting, Nora orders Sigrid to play the film again, this time more slowly, to prevent the others from returning to their gas hypotheses. A loud, animal-like roar can be heard in the distance, and a large, enigmatic humanoid shape can be seen in the shadows among the falling rocks. An elderly married couple in Lesja is perplexed as to what has become of their dog, who won't stop barking. The couple quickly flees to their basement as everything starts to fall apart and the electricity goes out as the whole house suddenly begins to shake. The couple emerges from the house once the shaking stops to discover it utterly ruined, but the dog is at least unharmed. The base's leaders continue to reject the possibility that the footprints could have been left. Nora reminds them that instead of sitting on their butts and bickering for hours, they should take action against whatever gigantic thing it is. Nora is asked to accompany Andreas to Lesja to investigate the most recent occurrence after Nora earns Berit's official recognition as the scientific advisor due to her positive attitude. Nora responds to Andreas' question on how she became a paleontologist on the helicopter by saying that she has always liked the outdoors and that her fascination with fairy tales as a young child led her to desire to search for the real monsters underground. Her mother passed away when she was 10 years old, and her father was an Norwegian mythology professor. Legend, but as he got older, he became less able to tell fact from fiction. Because of this, Nora hasn't seen Tobias in a long time. When they reach their destination, Nora interrupts Andreas because she is horrified by the damage to the countryside. Andreas admits he wants to be a writer and is excited by the potential that this incident had otherworldly causes. Nora is greeted by Captain Christopher, who shows them the tracks that came from across the river, into the valley, traveled 2 miles south into the mountains, and then stopped. The area has already been secured by the military. The soldiers searched the area thoroughly but came up empty-handed. Nora is greeted by Captain Christopher, who shows them the tracks that came from across the river, into the valley, traveled 2 miles south into the mountains, and then stopped. The area has already been secured by the military. The soldiers searched the area thoroughly but came up empty-handed. Nora interviews the elderly couple, but there was a huge moving figure obscuring the sun so they couldn't see much. However, they did pick up on a loud howling that had a melancholy melody to it. After that, Nora examines the damage more closely and detects a very peculiar and potent odor that she names hibernation. Additionally, she searches for biological remnants using UV light, but all she discovers is rocks and dirt. Nora requests to be escorted to the location where the tracks abruptly come to an end and the thermal scanner only reveals mountains. Nora wonders if this creature has the ability to camouflage because it is too large to hide or vanish. Nora is beginning to form some theories, but she is unsure, so she brings Christopher and Andreas to see Tobias. When he sees visitors on his land, particularly an armed soldier, he bursts out brandishing a gun. Tobias agrees to let them inside even though he'll need to put on some trousers first after Nora reveals that this is the daughter he hasn't seen in a long time. Paper clips and books that document Tobias' preoccupation with locating the fabled troll are scattered throughout his home. Nora begs him to focus on the tape she is about to show him and interrupts him when he starts talking about all of his thoughts about trolls being real and the witnesses being silenced. She then explains that she believes his earlier work may contain some clues. He is the expert on these mountains after all. Tobias believes that this video demonstrates his troll hypothesis in reality, and when Nora makes Tobias informs her that the Christianization of Norway eliminated all the legendary animals, and that when he was going to reveal it all, Tobias was put to the lunatic asylum. If trolls had ever existed, scientists would have already discovered their DNA, he claims. He believes that the powers that be have always known and that fairy tales were created to portray trolls as nasty and stupid when they are actually rather intelligent. Nora finds what she's hearing to be unbelievable, but Tobias is too thrilled to voice his disapproval and joins the team to carry on the inquiry. Tobias instantly observes that the terrain is completely incorrect and does not match the charts as they reach the spot where the tracks come to an end. He adds that it's like embarking on an adventure once more with his daughter, but Nora isn't interested in any sort of reconciliation. It appears that both father and daughter had been right as they both at once experience the smell of hypernature, the sky darkens, and the mountain behind them opens an eye. The anomalous topography was caused by the troll, who has used his abilities to blend in to pretend to be a part of the mountain. The team retreats to the chopper in order to flee as the troll stands up, displaying its powerful form and bellowing at them. However, they are still able to capture the troll on camera, and when the base receives the transmission, they are unable to continue to deny the reality. In order to call the base and let them know what they've discovered, Christopher transports the gang to his military camp. To avoid coming across as crazy, Nora keeps referring to the object as an unknown creature, but Tobias interrupts her and explains that the object is actually a troll who was irritated by the construction in the mountains, which Tobias views as a mocking of nature. The leaders dismiss him as crazy and expel him, but Nora's request for more time is ignored as well. They will prepare a military action because they are concerned about the security of their nation. After that, Nora is upset with her dad for spoiling everything and wants to leave, but Tobias convinces her otherwise by saying that he is aware that this isn't a fairy tale and that the troll won't be easily driven away by tools and sunlight. Weapons will just make the troll angrier because it has just awakened alone and is afraid, and nature will always fight back. Nora stays after acknowledging his validity. All that is left is to persuade Christopher to take them along. He initially declines, but after considerable pleading from Nora, he agrees to hide the group in his aircraft as long as they agree to carry out his instructions. He initially declines, but after considerable pleading from Nora, he agrees to hide the group in his aircraft as long as they agree to carry out his instructions. By the time the entire military operation arrives in Heidel, it is already dark. Tobias and Nora come to an understanding while they wait for the troll to materialize as they recall the earlier fairy stories they used to exchange throughout their journeys. The troll appears a little while later, but when he is close enough, he pauses, and Tobias is certain that the creature is aware of their presence. The soldiers fire on the troll despite Tobias' warnings that it will just enrage him. Nevertheless, the bullets and explosions have no effect. Instead, they merely prompt the troll to lash back as Tobias had foreseen. As the troll ruins everything in its path, everyone starts to flee. Taking into account the cameras that were broadcasting the action to the main headquarters. Tobias reveals that the troll probably smelt the blood from the soldiers' wounds because the team was hiding behind a tree with a wounded soldier when the troll reached down and grabbed the soldier to devour it. Nora, Andreas, and Christopher want to flee, but Tobias makes the decision to approach the troll and make an effort at being pleasant. To everyone's surprise, the troll actually stops moving and responds to Tobias' kind words with tranquil groans, but regrettably not all of the troops seem to have been informed of this. When the troll turns around to engage in a counterattack, a truck unintentionally hits Tobias in the process. Nora rushes to her father's side as the troll leaves, and Tobias murmurs, "The palace, the king, home," pleading with his daughter to remember to believe before he passes away. When they get back to the base, Nora occupies herself by reading through Tobias' studies in an effort to block out the suffering and find a solution. When Andreas and Christopher visit her to see how she is, they tell her that although they have temporarily lost sight of the troll, the army is preparing an airstrike. Nora believes that this attack will have the same outcome as the first one, so they must come up with novel solutions. Trolls are said to dislike sunshine in fairy tales, yet this one has been observed emerging in broad daylight. Tobias' comment on how the Christianization of Norway eliminated the trolls gives Nora an idea and is the other piece of information they have. They get in touch with Berit and the others to let them know that bells are necessary because legend has it that trolls used to throw boulders at churches when they heard the bells. The leaders find this absurd, and Christopher has to intervene to remind them that they need alternatives as nothing has so far worked, leading Berit to reluctantly give them permission to proceed with the idea. A short while later, the troll emerges, creeping closer to the Hunderfossen family park and terrifying the audience to the point of widespread panic. As everyone starts to flee, with the exception of a young girl who wants to witness the creature, Christopher and Nora arrive in a helicopter, in charge of a large hover holding enormous bells. These bells are used to surround the troll while they ring them, and it turns out that Nora was correct in saying that the ringing does injure the troll's hearing. In contrast, the troll doesn't think twice to fight in self-defense, striking the helicopters and causing them to crash. Surprisingly, the troll grabs the helicopter to save the young girl as one is about to land on top of her. Given that this occurred in such a prominent area, now that the troll is on its approach to the capital city, the entire world is aware of it. The incident is covered by news outlets worldwide, and phone-recorded videos quickly become popular on social media. When the squad gets back to the base, an irate Berit refuses Nora's advice that they should try again from a different perspective because the bells did work and throws her out. Nora runs into Christopher as she leaves, and he admits that he believes Berit is making a mistake. He also promises to be there for Nora should she ever need anything. The military officials inform Berit about some hazardous weapons that have not yet received official approval in the conference room. Berit finds it hard to think she was unaware of this. Andreas argues that such weapons shouldn't even be thought about, but this just results in his being ejected from the meeting. He chooses to give up and accompany Nora on his way out after realizing he won't be taken seriously, advising her to get ready as they are departing the city. A short while later, Berit makes an official announcement on television declaring a state of emergency and requesting cooperation from the populace as their forces take charge of preparing for the next operation and assisting them in evacuating without incident. Since Nora and Andreas are traveling together and encounter traffic, Nora makes use of the delay to continue reading Tobias' research. The pages keep making references to Sinding and a gatekeeper, which makes Andreas wonder Rickard Sinding, the Lord Chamberlain at the royal palace, might offer his opinion. Nora suddenly recalls Tobias saying, "King, palace, home," just before he passed away and decides they must go to the royal palace. They are stopped by the gate guards after Andreas drives them there, but Sinding rushes over to let them in because he knew Tobias or a relative would arrive at any moment. Sinding explains that he respected Tobias even though Tobias disliked him and that it was only because of his tenacity that he was one of the few persons to find the palace's hidden treasure. Previously, it was lucky to construct a palace atop that of another king. It turns out that this particular palace was constructed where the Troll King formerly called home. As Sinding reveals that the Christianization of Norway destroyed everything that went against their faith, they assaulted the royal troll family and only spared one kid in order to seduce the king up the mountain. Nora and Andreas are then escorted to a tunnel filled with troll bones. They left it for dead after locking it within a cavern there. Tobias learned about everything 12 years ago, and Sinding sent him to the psych ward to protect the secret. He regrets doing it, but he still believes it to be the correct thing to do, which infuriates Nora. The Troll King is approaching the palace and they need to stop him, so this isn't the time for debate, as Nora understands Tobias was correct. Nora discovers that her UV light is causing damage to the bones as she examines them, proving that the legends about sunlight were in fact true. The troll has been spotted throughout the day, but due to the clouds and mountains, they haven't seen it in full sunshine. While Nora has a plan and calls Christopher for assistance, Andreas points out that they cannot control the sun. Christopher will set up a particular trap while Nora and Andreas entice the troll to it. The troll has arrived at the city in the meantime. Berit agrees to the employment of the missiles since, once more, military attacks have little effect on the situation. They need to find a method to buy time because Sigrid sees the leaders preparing to fire those missiles and phones Andreas to warn him. While Christopher starts sounding the alarms throughout the city, Andreas asks Sigrid to try to hack into the army system to block the launch. This attracts all of Christopher's soldier friends to his location to assist him with the trap. Nora and Andreas will drive the largest truck they have around the city to entice the troll away from the palace, with help from Sinding, who instructs the guards to place one of the troll's skulls on it. When Sigrid finally enters the system after a few tries, she quickly pauses the missiles, giving Nora and Andreas the necessary time. They finally run away when the troll gets close, revealing the skull on the truck's back, which makes the troll growl in rage and pursue them as intended. In order to keep his warriors brave when the monster eventually materializes, Christopher gives a motivational speech to them when Nora calls to let him know they're on their way. Nora and Andreas reach the motorway after tons of frantic driving through the streets of Oslo, but not before Nora unintentionally loses the skull. The troll halts his pace to take it. Before realizing its reflection is on a structure, it groans in agony for its children. The moment the troll tries to touch the glass, it shatters, startling it and leading it to drop the skull, which splits into a million pieces. The troll roars in pain and becomes enraged, making Nora understand how horrible it is to be the last of its species. As the monster pursues them in retaliation, Nora returns to her original plan of fleeing and does her best to avoid all the damage the troll is wreaking. Sigrid's hacking is found at the base, and her computer is removed so that they can restart the system. As the troll steps on the truck, Nora and Andreas exit the truck to finish luring it to the center. Moments later, they arrive at the location of the trap. The troops then turn on dozens of UV lights, which encircle the troll and begin to burn it as it tries to walk on Nora. The missile-equipped plane is also getting closer, but the pilot stops when he spots nearby civilians. The operation is effectively cancelled when Sigrid punches the moron who doesn't care about his citizens during a debate about whether or not to abort at the base. The troll is slowly dying as Barrett and the other base residents watch on their screens, and Christopher's warriors are already celebrating the triumph. However, Nora cuts off the electricity to save the life because she can't bear to hear and see it suffer. In the same manner as her father did, Nora approaches the troll and softly begs it to return to the safety of the mountains before stopping the troops from opening fire. The troll considers her comments as it stares at her, but before it can respond, the sun rises, burning the troll until nothing but rubble is left. Andreas makes jokes about what they ought to call this new hill or monument while everyone enjoys their victory. And Nora makes the decision to call it the Tobias Boulder. Moments later, Barrett shows there, and she compliments Nora on her job. When Andreas leaves with Nora after reminding the Prime Minister that he resigned and declaring his intention to become a writer, he muses on the possibility of there being further animals buried in Dovre.